park committee. I had to keep going in there and unmuting and muting. All right. We're live.
There we are.
Are we live? Council meeting 2-2. That's the day. It's 7 o'clock, so we'll call this meeting to order. If you'd stand, join me in prayer. Please remain standing for the pledge of allegiance. Lord, we just thank you for allowing us to come do the business of the city, Lord. We just thank you for allowing us to be here and live in this country, Lord. We pray for all the leaders of this country and the state, Lord, and just lift them up, Lord. And those who are sick with COVID, Lord, we just lift them up. Especially, Lord, we just want to lift up our police chief, Mike Richardson's father-in-law, who's not doing very well at all, Lord. Just be with them and comfort that family especially, and all the others as well, Lord. For your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the January 19th meeting. You received a copy of these in your packet. I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the January 19th meeting.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll let Russell call for the...
Councilmember Grayhouse.
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Head. Yes. Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
All right. Next is the adoption of the agenda. Is there any additions, subtractions from this agenda?
Mayor, I'd ask that item 8 be tabled. Staff's not ready to make a recommendation of award.
Okay. Have that recommendation. Anything else? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda tabling item 8 on the city manager's report?
So ordered.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse.
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Head.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
All right. Next item on the agenda, Ms. Kyle Fletcher from the Thompson Upson Industrial Development Authority. We've asked her to come kind of give us an update after our board retreat we had and some updates and stuff. And
Great. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I realized I send a weekly update to each of you, but I want to do a better job with face-to-face interaction and coming to give you kind of a first-hand view of what's going on with the Development Authority and give you the opportunity to ask questions if you have them. As the mayor mentioned, we did have a board retreat that was facilitated by Carl Vinson Institute in December. And I just thought it was an amazing 2 days. We were very candid. We talked about challenges and opportunities. And one of the things that Carl Vinson tasked me with doing in preparation for the retreat was to list some of the successes that we've had in the Development Authority over the last 10 years. And I think I sent this PowerPoint to you in mid-December. You may remember receiving this, but I want to review it real quick, and I'm going to resend it to you tomorrow as well. But some of the things that we did accomplish in over a 10-year period is the IDA issued over $209 million in industrial revenue bonds. The latest bond being a $115 million bond to Interfor. And issuance of bonds is one of the main reasons the IDA was created in 1964. And it is a great incentive to both companies that we're recruiting as well as existing industries. So we're really a conduit, and the tax abatement that they receive from the city, county, and sometimes the school system is what has caused some of these companies to locate here. So it's a very valuable incentive. Also, the following industries and national retailers or commercial companies have located in Upson County in the past 10 years. Advantage Relocation, which is in the old Lakeside facility, Metalworks, Inman Solar, Golden Star, Solutions Pest and Lawn, Crown Technology, Supermalls, Renews Companies, United Teleports, Planet Fitness, Dunkin', Chick-fil-A. And McElroy, we're currently working with McElroy out of Pike County on a Holiday Inn Express on the Highway 19 corridor. It seems that the commercial corridor has just exploded over the last 18 months. And if I had to attribute that to something, it would definitely be that these retailers are gaining confidence in smaller markets. And Chick-fil-A is best known for their vetting process before they go somewhere. And I can assure you, if they vetted Thomaston, Georgia, then a lot more is going to follow because they realize that that process is in-depth, and if the market is able to sustain a Chick-fil-A, that they feel comfortable coming. So we really hope that momentum will continue. I'd also like to add that over the last 10 years, the IDA became debt-free, and in part thanks to the City Council for participating with the county in a 5-year agreement that extended. What happened is we were able to pay off all our debt once we sold the spec building and the building on Poplar Drive that was gifted to us by Scott Blackstock. So we paid off all our debt, and then we asked the city and the county to continue paying the $245,000 of debt service. And that ends in 2022, and I'm hoping that as a council you will consider extending that, because building that incentive pool is critical as we try to be competitive in the recruitment and the retention of industries. Our office created a workforce development task force to address issues with the present and future workforce. That committee is composed of school representatives, local industry leaders, Southern Crescent, Three Rivers Regional Commission, and people from a wide range of work sectors such as the bank, hospital, and such. The CTAE director at Upson Lee High School also plays an active role in that workforce. Now, with business recruitment and retention, I did want to mention that COVID has definitely been a challenge in our region, in our state, country, and in the world. I'm not able to meet with state project managers in person, and many of them are working remotely, and there's no time frame on when they will actually go back to the office if they do. When the pandemic first started in early 2020, I realized that virtual tours of our industrial park were going to be needed. So I enlisted the services of Bruce Dunaway, who's an IT extraordinaire with drone videos and such. And so we created a 2-minute video on our industrial park, and it goes from Renews to the airport and covers all of the 240 acres. It talks about infrastructure that's in place, and basically it's a virtual tour for any project managers to share with potential prospects. So I was really glad we were able to get that completed by April. So when we've been dealing with COVID, it hasn't stopped us in our marketing efforts. So I've also been communicating with existing industries. Some are not allowing visitors in. The school system is not allowing visitors in, so it's hard to have face-to-face meetings and continue some things. And I don't know about y'all, but a lot of people have Zoom fatigue or Microsoft meetings. It's just not the same. So we continue to do things. We do it in a different way and try to be creative, but COVID has definitely presented a challenge to everyone. I'd also like to add, I did meet with a project manager who came to Thomaston, and we met at the airport last week, and things have slowed for them because as a new administration takes place, companies are waiting to see some of the policies that are made. And so sometimes we have a lull in things, and right now people are looking for a little confidence and to learn about the administration before they make decisions. So that's just kind of an update on that. One of the big things that we had happen is I tell the IDA board that the new transportation highway is the telecommunications highway. That's how business is done. You've got to have strong fiber in your park, and Windstream Kinetic recently got a permit from Cater Parrot RailNet, which Norfolk Southern leases the rail here to Cater Parrot RailNet, if you didn't know that. And so they're very easy to deal with as far as railroads go. And we've got a good relationship, but Windstream put a lot of money, I think the permit's over $20,000 to get permitted to bore under the rail crossing right there at Dart. So they have done that successfully. So they're not going to extend the line down Technology Parkway until they have an end user. But it is there ready to go. So that's going to be an important piece to the puzzle as we move forward. Everybody in this room knows that we're working diligently, y'all are working diligently on wastewater capacity with the city, and I think you're getting close to terms, and then that will go to the IDA. And I want to assure the city council that the IDA board is committed financially to helping with this project in any way we can. I think we'd like to see 150,000 gallons per day, which is the maximum we could get, which would be 1.5 million that, you know, could potentially be our portion. And that's why when I asked for an extension of the debt service, continuing for another 5 years, if we, you know, $2 million seems like a lot of money, but when you're talking infrastructure, it's not. So since we're not able to generate revenue, essentially, you know, that would be a vital piece to the funding structure. So there's a lot going on. I'm excited. I'm confident that this wastewater is gonna, we are gonna figure out the answer to that and how to get it done, but it won't happen quickly. But as I told the IDA board and the county commission, it has not stopped our marketing efforts. So we can continue to market. The IDA is looking at a lot of different things that we've never looked at in the past. And so I will mention the other document that I sent you in December was a 6, 12, and 18-month timeline. And it looks like this, and I'm going to resend all this tomorrow. But it has goals that we want to accomplish. And I just wanted to mention what the action items are. They're communication and education, sewer infrastructure at the technology park, using a potential developer to help us market and develop the park, understanding fiber infrastructure around the county, continued business recruitment efforts, brownfield work, and I'll be coming back to you. I've sent an RFQ out for companies to help with brownfield sites, and I know y'all have looked at them before, so you're familiar, but I would like to pursue a coalition grant for brownfields, which would include, Russell and I have talked about it at length, but it would include the city, Yatesville, and the county. And the grant is for $600,000. So once we determine what company we will work with, I think we open those bids on the 19th of February. I will be coming back to council and telling you what I might need for that. And also, one of the things that we want to pursue, I said understanding fiber. There's a designation called Rural Broadband Community, and it's another initiative that would take the city, Yatesville, and Upson County working together, but it's basically saying that you're willing to expedite permitting if someone was to come in and offer, you know, to lay fiber. It's a big issue for some of our industries, and as we look at the COVID pandemic and more people working from home, it's an industrial and it's a residential issue. And so what can we do to make that happen? I'm working with Robert Haney on that, and getting the designation of a rural broadband community is not real difficult. It's difficult what happens next to make things happen, but the main reason we want to pursue getting that designation is DCA does not give any broadband monies or grants to communities that don't have that designation. And there are really not many communities that have it right now. The closest to us is Woodbury, the city of Woodbury, that just did it. and they're doing some satellite thing with UGA. So I will be coming back asking for maybe a resolution or you guys to come up with an ordinance. I think I mentioned that to Russell today also. So, also just wanted to end by saying if you hear people say, we need jobs, or what is the Development Authority doing? Well, I want to tell you, we have jobs. We have ample jobs in this community. I know that Solutions Pest and Lawn is hiring. They have continued to hire through the COVID process. They do insecticides, and they transform to do some hand sanitizer and stuff. Inta4 is also hiring, and I was out there meeting with their interim plant manager, Chris Hilly, who's a local guy, and they start people at $15 an hour, and if you have your certification to drive a forklift, it's $18.25 an hour. Lori Smith with the chamber told me that Ingalls is hiring. If you've missed that 18-wheeler out front, it says now hiring. You need to take your I'm hiring. You're hiring. The police department is hiring. Several fast food restaurants. Jobs are available, and I do know that it may not be the specific job somebody's looking for, but I also know, especially with our industries, if you will interview with them, show up to work on time, pass a drug test, and be willing to work, you will move up quickly. And if you're just looking at the entry-level positions, you've got to look a little beyond that. If you're not ready to look for a job because you don't have any training, Southern Crescent Technical College is the best avenue, and it's right here in our community, and I can't say everything's free down there, but I'm pretty sure a lot of the stuff that you can get is. And we need people to work. The challenge right now is with stimulus money and with unemployment, the labor force is just not ready to get back to work. So there are a lot of things going against us, but when somebody says we need jobs, say we need people to fill the jobs, because that's what we really need. But I appreciate you. I look forward to working with you in 2021. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Mayor, Kyle, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Number one, on the Holiday Inn Express, what's the timeline on that? And then I'll ask you.
Okay, they purchased the property. They've submitted the paperwork, Russell, for annexation. It takes probably 18 months to build that. And they just got permission from IHG that owns Holiday Inn Express on the number of rooms. And when we offered incentives to McElroy, we offered, I believe, $200,000 or $250,000. And we said we want a pool, we want a conference room with that can accommodate up to say 85 people. And that's how we built our incentive, is we asked them, to put these things. They weren't going to do a pool, and I said, man, we want to have rec tournaments here, and those kids are going to want to stay there, and they're going to want to swim, and so on and so forth. But we have an agreement that they haven't signed yet because they were waiting for this pivotal meeting. So once they sign the agreement with IDA on the incentives, then they'll have 90 days to get things going. So
isn't the property
it's
next
north
to-
of Chick-fil-A. It's not the empty lot, it's the yellow building.
all right?
So,
And then one other question that you and I have talked today
Okay.
a little bit about the Windstream, and they're born under. Help me to understand. Does that expand our capacity? Does it make it a more robust thing, or is it more of a redundant connection?
well, we didn't have anything but basic in the park, but this got fiber into the park. Everybody probably was familiar, your cell phone may not have worked last Friday. Well, Windstream, from the tornado that happened months ago, Windstream's lines were still on the ground. And there was a controlled burn, and the lines were burned because I guess the people didn't know they were on the ground. Well, it was a huge issue for one of our local industries, United Teleports, out in the park, but they don't have a redundant, they don't have a second line going in there. And I'll say real quick, I don't speak the language of IT or engineering or those things, but it's something that we're working on. But it all comes down to the almighty dollar. You've got to pay to get that second line. But that line is not going to impact what United Teleports is trying to do.
And to attract people that need real robust connectivity and all that, is that just a whole nother issue for us? Is that really?
Yeah, I mean, I think realistically, Thomaston and Upson County is not going to be able to attract a Silicon Valley type of industry that's needs are, you know, you're gonna need a granddaddy like AT&T or one of those providers. But, you know, I try to match things with our workforce, and the very important thing is when we're recruiting people to be open and honest about what infrastructure capabilities we do have. The last thing I want to do is mislead somebody. And an industry knows they're going to need redundancy, like Solutions, who's e-commerce a lot. Well, there's only so much the IBA can do. It gets to the point where a company's going to have to make the investment. If they're not willing to make the investment, come see us and we'll talk about whether there's an opportunity for us to help. If there's an opportunity for us to help one company in the park, but it would ultimately benefit other users, then I think it's certainly something that we'd be willing to do.
Thank you for what you do.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Next item is the city attorney's report.
Nothing at this time.
Alright. Next item, city clerk, Ms. Gill's not here this evening. Anything from the city engineers?
Not at this time, Mayor. We'll have quite a bit at the next meeting.
Okay. Next item is city manager's report.
The first item for council's consideration is any appointments or nominations to various committees, specifically historic preservation and the Thomaston Tree Board.
Anybody reach out if you heard back, Jeff?
I have not heard back a lot.
Just make a note of those, so maybe by the next meeting we can have those
I will,
those fields.
I will continue to come here.
All right.
Next item for council's consideration is approval of the IT agreement or the intergovernmental agreement between the city of Thomaston and the Upson County Board of Commissioners. Council authorized the execution of this agreement prior to the end of December with a CPI adjustment. However, the county never executed the agreement and requested a slight increase. You should have a copy of that agreement attached with your packet headed H2, and the increase in compensation amounts to $4,000 annually for a total new contract price of $68,000, payable quarterly in installments of $17,000. Staff's recommendation is to authorize and execute the agreement.
You've heard that recommendation?
Does the city have any intentions of maybe doing its own one at any point, or?
You know, we've done a pretty good job in functional consolidation with regards to IT. I don't know how familiar you are with our internal network, but we're on co-internet as it is. If you've ever been in the business office, we used to have all of our servers and everything located down in Sandy's office. We relocated all of that equipment down to the server room. So things seem to be working out well. And still via the intergovernmental agreement, our contract rate for the service is actually less than we were paying prior to. So seems like it's a good value right now for what's being provided. So
Make a motion to approve as presented.
A motion to hear second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse.
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Head.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Next item for council's consideration is the approval of a compact track loader. This is actually a skid steer from Yancey for the sewer department to replace an older piece of equipment. The contract amount is state pricing in the amount of $75,556. And the item is appropriated in the 2021 budget. Staff's recommendation is to authorize the expenditure.
You've heard that recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse.
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Head.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Next item for council's consideration is the approval of purchase of a 2021 F-350 pickup truck from Thomaston Ford. This is also a state pricing purchase. The amount of the vehicle is $47,200. It is allocated and under budget in the 2021 budget, and staff's recommendation is to approve.
Who is this truck for?
Sewer Department.
You need to say that.
You've heard that recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse.
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Head.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Next item for council's consideration is the approval of a downtown master plan market analysis scope. Couple meetings back, WLA Studios was selected as the most responsive responder for a solicitation that the city did to develop a market analysis and a downtown redevelopment plan for downtown Thomaston, specifically the geographic boundary that encompasses most of the Downtown Development Authority. You should have a copy of that scope attached with your packet. I think we met with 3 or 4 companies, presented WLA, they were selected. We met with them over their scope, had a video conference. It is pricey, and it is more than was appropriated in the 2021 budget. The budget appropriation was $30,000, and the scope proposal from WLA Studios is $69,090. Now, what you get is a marketability plan, leak analysis, and redevelopment tools, including portions of hardscape, landscape, architecture type of what your downtown. In the tool that's needed to help grow and develop the downtown. The impetus was this. For this, we took a trip down to Bainbridge and we've met with community leaders from downtown. We've met with the Downtown Development Authority. And one of the state programs that has been enacted that we feel like Thomaston will benefit from is considered the rural zone designation. I think the legislature created it in 2017. It's a competitive process. The state can award up to 10 cities a year. There's a 10-year sunset on the program, and the benefits include tax credits for developers, property owners, and employers. So there's a provision that if you come in, buy a piece of property within the rural zone, you make a capital improvement within the rural zone, or you make employment during the rural zone, then you actually get tax credits up to a certain cap, and then you have, that 10-year period to utilize those tax credits, which help cash infuse your project, which in turn helps redevelop your downtown. To be eligible for the designation, they do require a market analysis and a master plan, so to speak, that serves as your roadmap that kind of feeds into the feasibility of the state making the designation. Councilman Head is on the DDA. He met with the group. Like I said, the price is high, but to my knowledge, the city of Thomaston has never had a formal downtown master plan other than streetscape with regards to brick and mortar buildings and businesses of the sort. So with that, the time frame we're under, considering the due diligence we went through in the screening of the process, staff's recommendation is to authorize the execution of the scope of WLA Studios in the amount of $69,090. At some subsequent point in the future, the city council will be asked to make a budget modification or amendment to incorporate the costs and to balance out the revenues for the overage on the expenditure.
You've heard this recommendation. Is there a motion for this?
I'll make a motion.
Have a motion to hear a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
When would the application be due for these tax credits?
It is due in September, and we have the WLA studio is nodding their head, and that they can provide the horsepower and the manpower to have us the deliverables necessary for our application. And that was one of the conditions that we worked out.
And Russell, help me remember, the application would go in then, but the credits wouldn't be available until next year, right?
Correct. The state has to actually authorize the award. And then if you bought a piece of property within the rural zone, you could be entitled to state tax credits. If you don't have state tax credit liability, or if you don't have state tax liability, there's some pretty interesting financial partnerships that go on with people who may have federal liability, and then they sell the tax credits to somebody who has state liability, and they work out a deal, on the back end to make it. So creative financing, utilizing tools that the state's allowed to try to redevelop rural downtowns.
And in the end, for those people who went down to Bainbridge, they were they pretty much said, this master plan was the beginning of what, and they've accomplished a lot in a town that looks in many ways like Thomaston in their downtown area, but they got a lot of investment going on, and a lot of it was drawn by the tax credits, which was down the road from this master plan.
All right. Any further? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse.
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Ed.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
The next item for council's consideration is the authorization for purchase of various pieces of furniture for City Hall. This was a project that we started last year. We're just now getting around to the ratification. So the plan was we were trying to get it in as part of the rehab we did to City Hall offices where we got the new floor and the new paint. Fell through the cracks. We went through, Miss Carol down in Lonnie's office has done an inventory of all staff offices. The goal was that if we could get it passed in 2020 was to reallocate the travel budget that had not been expended due to travel restrictions with COVID. There was approximately $30,000 in that line item. The total price for the furniture here today is $33,539.25. Very close. This gets it done. Nice chairs, conference table for the break room, the new buffet credenza, replacing all the outdated desk chairs. Total shooting match is $33,539.25. That does include shipping, and that does include the labor for on-site installation and delivery.
Yes, pretty good references on them.
Yes, it is the company that the city has always utilized for.
Happy with the furniture.
Yes. So staff's recommendation is to authorize the expenditure in the amount of $33,539.20 for National Business Furniture, and as such shall be paid for out of carryover funds that were allocated for travel expenditures, and we'll have to do a slight budget amendment for $3,000 at some time this fiscal year.
So moved.
Didn't even have to ask. So we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussions? We talked about this and long overdue.
I know.
Yeah.
So we're glad we're getting this done. So hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse.
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Head.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Next item for consideration for the city council is the creation of a new community relations committee for the city that will hear various issues surrounding any interactions with the general public. Some of the things that we have discussed over the previous year regarding you know, this institution and this facility could be one of the topics for consideration. We talked about it briefly and wanted to give council the opportunity to debate again, and if interested, to formally commission the committee to set the number of participants and to set up coordination and informational sessions to get started.
All right, has anybody thought about a number?
Hadn't thought about a number, but that was something that we had discussed a while back. I thought every board member was gonna appoint someone to look into this situation. That's what we was thinking.
So that would mean 1, 2, 3,
Probably need an odd
5.
number, wouldn't you? I mean, definitely say 1, 2, 3. I guess that is you, yeah.
You know, one of the things about is, Russell, you said something when up in Rome, you're a little bit clear. 7 is, you know, you do have to have a right number so you can break the tie. And Russell, this committee, if they came up with an idea, would then submit the idea to the council?
It would be an advisory committee for the city council that you would empower in some way to handle community interactions or issues that pertain to government-citizen interactions, and have them kind of, you know, facilitate that and to provide you insight and recommendation. And, you know, you were speaking of Rome. I actually talked to the city manager of Rome before our meeting tonight, and the issue they had a memorial in a cemetery and a statue of General Forrest in the cemetery. I think they voted in July. They commissioned a study, and the city manager told me that they relocated the statue of the general. It's in storage now. The monument will remain in the cemetery, but the statue will eventually be placed on Jackson Hill in Rome. So it was considered, in their attorney's opinion, a place of equal prominence. So that's how that turned out. They moved it from the cemetery. It's in storage, and they're going to put it, you know, another place. I did talk to him about our situation, and he agreed it's very unique. So interesting to talk about. So that's what happened in Rome.
Just afraid you start getting 7, 9, 11, you know, it's just gonna be hard to bring everybody together to some kind of consensus whenever there is a subject matter that's before them. I certainly want them to be able to, you know, act and, you know, act efficiently.
I don't think you'd want over 7
I don't think 7 would be.
max. That would be,
Yeah, I think the more you get on a committee like that, the more difficult it is.
Yeah.
would that be like one, kind of like some of the committees I know, like you get somebody from your district, that each council member could put somebody on from their district? Is that how we?
Well, how would you allocate the other 2? Then it becomes, what's,
yeah.
you know. It's
I didn't know.
Ryan, are you
individual-
saying that 5 would be a better number than 7?
I don't know, it just begs the question, if there's, you know, there's 5 of us and we each, you know, nominate somebody, and then the other 2, we want them to be in the city, so naturally they're gonna fall in somebody's district. Unless you wanna have non-city representation for the last 2.
You
but
only
I-
have
just go
4
5.
you only have 4 districts.
That's true, yeah.
So 1 with 5 would still be from an at-large.
Mhm. Maybe that one person's outside the county, I mean, outside the city.
Russell, do you have a thought on 5 or 7?
You know, I think 5 would be a good number, and I don't know how council would feel about it, but to take some of the ambiguity and concern out, perhaps you could set that, you know, the nomination and confirmation process receive a supermajority of the vote. appoint 5, but if it's a divisive issue, then a simple majority can't serve as a nomination, require a supermajority vote for confirmation to the committee.
Man, what would be divisive to you may not be to somebody else. I mean, how would you have to either want everything or, nothing about how you would.
So it's the idea with 5, each councilman would come up with
You know, the terms would be the pleasure of the council, however you want to fill it. I'm just thinking politics in a political environment. If you had a 3-2 issue, you could inadvertently stack the deck for the committee to yield the decision you wanted. However, if it was required a supermajority vote for confirmation, you could negate the appointment. Neutral, to make more neutral the committee.
So whoever
Not
gets-
saying that would happen, I'm just trying to think through the
For
process.
anybody, anytime we vote on that person, so if Ryan put up somebody,
Take 4 votes.
it takes 4 votes for that person to be on the
So
committee,
you're talking about for the 5th person,
for all of them.
for all of
For
them?
all of them.
That way I think that would make it,
Is that what you're saying, Russell, for all of them?
for all of them. So anybody puts somebody up for it, it has to be at least a super majority vote for that member to be on the committee.
I'm saying it has to be, I'm just saying that. That gives you a solid base that y'all are all lining up and you're all agreeing that these are the people we want.
That way somebody want to put somebody well on one side or the other, it kind of keeps the committees kind of open and minded, fair. You don't get some,
that makes sense.
makes sense. I mean, most it may not always be unanimous, but it may, if it's somebody that's, I don't know, kind of keeps it from getting.
Just thinking of hypersensitive issues.
Yeah.
Where you have polar rising views, but you want to trying to build consensus. Maybe it helps.
I think that's the fairest way to do it. That way everybody's got a say as to each one, and maybe everybody needs to talk and have at least 2 in mind,
Looks like, looking at like a 5-member committee, each member of that committee would need at least 4 votes from council to be approved to be on a committee, on that committee.
Yeah, I like it.
Does that sound fair, honest,
I don't have no problem with that.
even with that? Okay. So I guess we need a motion to create a new committee relations, with that stipulation, so.
JD, let me just ask, the process for it would be, if we pass this tonight, then each councilman, as Deanne said, might come up with an idea of 2 and what might be their preference, and then would they sort of get with Russell and talk about that so that we.
Or do we ask if anybody's interested? I mean, I guess if public's watching, if anybody's interested, they would need to contact, I think,
Just have them contact City Hall expressing their interest.
interested in, or your specific,
Pass
they
it.
somebody calls Ms. Reeves and say, I'd really like to be on this committee, and then she can pass that name forward or something.
So you want them to call City Hall?
Or y'all.
No.
But if they want general information, we can take down their information and we can, maybe easier to disseminate to the full body if they do that, however you want to do it.
How long, I mean, process, you want these by the next meeting, give them a month.
It said 30 days. We'll get with the newspaper and maybe do a little story and put out a press release if that's something you want to do and see what type of interest we garner. make your appointments.
We want this to be a good committee, that not just one issue,
Correct.
several issues, you know, things that make things better for everybody, so. All right. Anybody want to make that as a, make a motion for a 5-member committee that has to be at least 4 council votes to approve them?
Yes, I will make that motion.
Okay.
Maximum 5.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Clarified any? If not, call for a vote.
Councilmember Grayhouse.
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrook.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Head.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Next item for council's consideration is authorization to demo the water department building that is adjacent to the water plant. A couple of points to note. I have here for you a resolution that has been drafted by the city attorney that is in compliance with the city charter as to the proper mean for the disposition of real property. Also, a point to note, I received an email today from a citizen, Ms. Uphold, who represents Toll, and she had some concerns regarding the historic nature of the facility, the architecture with regards to the stucco, and has asked that the city council table this matter until such time as Toll can commission a study on the property. What I have for you here is a copy of the referendum from the 2016 SPLOST, which specifically enumerates under Thomaston projects, demolition and preparation of site and construction of backwash tank for the city water plant. As you may remember, last year we moved the water and sewer operations out of the building. We did a rehab to the blue facility, and we have moved them in. We've had the utilities cut, everything's pulled. You have quotations for the demo. It's a real estate issue. The backwash has to be in general proximity to the plant. We are bordered by the railroad on the east, Highway 19 on the west, Page Holloway on the north. There was some contemplation about purchasing, Jan Harp's property over there to the west of the road. Matt Smith bought that at the tax sale. Engineers are currently designing the tank right now. So, pleasure's the council. We received a late email. If you want to have a meeting, with Toll to maybe provide some explanation, staff would be happy to do that. But otherwise, I don't know where you're going to build a tank.
Russell does. She contacted me as well as in my district, and I guess too, correct me if I'm wrong with the rationale, the line of thinking, but I mean, this left, incomplete and could affect in some capacity our water system,
Quality water.
quality of water, and theoretically, at some point, continue to be left undone, could be a public safety issue for city water residents. I don't want to stretch it. I mean, is that a likely scenario?
It's an alum removal process for the water treatment facility.
It's a what?
It's an alum removal process for when they wash down the cellar.
So could it affect the water quality?
This is the discharge. This is a little
Okay.
high end. This is
Okay.
more of an EPD issue.
Okay.
It's not drinks, it's the leftover after
I
the
see.
treatment when it
Okay.
settles, and this tank separates the inert material from what we discharge.
So we wouldn't be able to discharge effectively
Well,
without it?
the same way, but it's always been one of those EPD issues that we need to get handled. That's why they identified it as a SPLOST project. This was, the only specific project that was in the SPLOST referendum. Is this the only place we can build the tank? No. Is it the cheapest place we can build a tank due to real estate that we already own? Yeah, and in the absence of not demolishing the building, the roof is falling in, remember?
Yeah.
It was gonna be a $30,000 to $40,000 fix, just to fix. We said, well, if we're gonna tear it down, we're gonna spend $30,000, so that's when we moved shop.
And there's some significant water damage inside it, just from the, and we're taking a tour of it, and that was
It's
not a nice place.
not located within the historic
If
district.
this was
It's not,
private, if this was a private person's building, it'd be a code violation. We'd probably want them to tear it down.
Yes,
Russell, the small building that's across from Burger King,
that's it,
huh,
that's it.
that's the one we're talking.
Yeah, stucco kind of looking.
Yeah. And Carl feels that it has some architectural significance.
but I think they didn't know for sure, but it could, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Russell, Mr. JD, you're on the email as well, but they wanted to do a study to find that out. That it was certainly old, but they weren't saying that there was any historical relevance. I think that's what was going to beckon the study. Is that how y'all interpret it?
That's exactly what she said, that they wanted to do a study on the stucco building that was built in the 1900s.
We know how long a study like that would take and how much it would delay.
And what are we doing right now? If
Design.
it's-
Stands the way it's always operated.
But I mean, with discharge and everything else.
They have to manually haul the alum, out after it's, so it don't go in.
Yeah.
This project was set, I guess, well, I ran for mayor. 'Cause it was on so the previous administration saw this and we're looking to tear it down as
I
well.
wasn't here when they wrote the referendum, but I was always told from our engineer, Patrick's plan was to demo that building, and that's where they were gonna build the tank.
You said it was like 30,000 for the damage, I mean, that you would have to repair the
Just-
roof.
just
we
the
looked
roof.
at getting the roof,
And how much for the demolition?
$9,000.
Anyone else comment on what they think?
Well, Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a front burner issue with the previous administration, because this was a real issue at that point, with 4 or 5 years down the road. We really need to address this as soon as possible.
Because I know that's the reason, I mean, this is the only specific project that was on, because I think previous would learn messing up on other things if you put too many things in, like even like the gas pipeline at the industrial park. We luckily kind of worked around some of that a little bit, I believe, but we were talking and we said it was called out, we need a certain size pipe, and then if you do that with you've got to go by what's on so if we end up not demolishing this, what would happen if we found out it can't be demolished?
You'd have to acquire property and you'd have to pipe it. You know, we have, staff's recommendation, given the time, there's some title work that Deanne is having to do in regards to the railroad and the proximity to the right of way for some of the stuff. They can have it on the ground and tore out probably in a couple of days. Staff's recommendation would be to provide a total of 30 days, not to exceed 30 days, to present findings back to the city council for consideration. And at that time, consideration for demolition.
Would that fall in line with design phase that we're in? I mean, was it gonna?
Well, I mean, you still gotta design it, you still gotta bid it and all that, but I'm not gonna spend any more design money if I can't build a tank there.
Right, I understand. What was there prior, folks who've been here many years?
So that
Yeah.
building's been there for a long,
Serving that purpose.
yeah.
Everybody else has been there.
So Russ, your recommendations is
Have them
30 days.
Have them submit their findings and recommendations within 30 days, and we'll take it into consideration. And it could be, you know, we got the email late, it could be we sit down with them, we walk through the building, we show them our plans and what we got, and, you know, but
Maybe less than 30. I mean, by the next meeting, we might know.
could. But we have genuine expressed interest, so, and being that time is not of, you know, critical need, we still have some legal work to do.
And Russell,
30
that
days.
might be a good idea to just say, hey, for those of you who want to walk through that building, I mean, it might, because they've made the, you know, made the request, doesn't necessarily mean that they want it this day. They want some time to think about it, but if they, you know, if you asked them and if they wanted to walk through and see, that might help them with their decision.
I'll make a motion based on your recommendation.
We have a motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? We vote on allowing up 30 days to study this building before we authorize a demo of it. So, any
They have to
further?
deliver their report or study to us in no more
Would you
than
say
30
before
days.
the first meeting, I don't know if that's, is that 30 days, because it's actually, in the short, it's a short month. So when's our next,
Call it prior to the first meeting in March.
the March 2nd meeting?
Yeah.
That's a month, so,
I'll amend my motion to include those dates
okay,
specifically.
all right.
And I'll second.
Second that, all right. All right, then we will call for a vote.
Councilmember Grayhouse.
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrook.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Head.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Next item for council's consideration is discussion and potential action or authorization for the passive use of Lake Thomaston. Had a meeting last week with representatives from Heart and Soul Subcommittee. One of the top 10 requests for local governments from citizens was some sort of pedestrian connectivity, bicycling, walking type of layout that would incorporate the entire city. And they spent quite a bit of time, you know, utilizing sewer right-of-ways, transmission line easements to kind of, you know, build this walking track around Thomaston, which obviously would be a multi-phased approach that would encompass federal and state grants, multiple years to facilitate. So when I met with the group, I asked them, you know, if we broke it up into phases, you know, what would be the preference, the easy win to get things started? And the consensus from the group was open up Lake Thomaston as part of, you know, the first phase. It's already paved. There's an 8-foot wide, you know, 1.5 mile loop. Just let people go out there, you know, walk, run. If they want to bring their dogs, if we want to schedule a 5K, that sort of thing. So I said, you know, I think that would probably be okay. I'll come and I'll talk to the city council. One of my plans, if council does that, I would like to apply for TAP funding through the Georgia Department of Transportation, which pays, you know, $1 million minimum projects and up for connectivity and pedestrian access projects. And hopefully the goal would one day to be to connect via trail, biking trail, golf cart trail, whatever you will, between Greatest Generation Park and the reservoir, and have that connectivity, you know, through that gateway across Highway 19. So what we're asking for now is just the authority to make, you know, subtle improvements for parking, potential ingress, egress off of County Road, to minimize some of the traffic that I think was some of the issues
Right.
over in your neighborhood, Jeff. I think the biggest concerns, you know, obviously are liability in the lake. Would not allow fishing at this time or access on the water, but just general, you know, walking, leisure activity, dogs, that sort of thing, for people to enjoy the water, you know, the view anyway, and the walking trail. Trash is gonna be a problem. We have to have a plan for that. I would recommend security cameras like we have at all the other parks, if council's interested. And just open it up, let's start small and see how it goes, and we can always rein it back in or open it up depending upon the input and the participation that we get.
IDA, we always hear quality of life stuff. Is bringing folks in, that would be an additional thing.
Right, and I'm also thinking about Lakeside, there's no fence on the backside of their property, so I need to.
Signage is gonna have to be required, there's gonna have to be a little bit of parking. We're not talking about the project that council killed with the amphitheater and all that. We're talking about passive use, walking, jogging, take your dog out there, trash patrol, video surveillance, and signage.
Would the city be liable in any way?
No more liable than you would be at Greatest Generation Park for those ponds.
Public safety input, Mike?
Well, the cameras would be great, but I agree with Kyle, you're gonna need to put some type of fencing along the parkside plan. Because anyone can go back there and access that whole thing.
The
And,
other entrance is gated to Lakeside there, and they have cameras, so I want
They
to
were-
protect the industry.
what they were doing, and this is just for information, when they were doing the storage, the Amazon storage, which I believe they're still stored out there, but when all those trucks were coming in from across, from the northeast or wherever they were coming from, we had multiple calls for service out there. Those truckers were coming in and there was some fight calls and a little bit of activity. That has stopped and we haven't had that for a while, but that's a warehouse facility, so it depends on what they're storing and what's going on. So I think you should absolutely consider putting some type of fencing up that separates that property so that you can't just come over there on it.
There's no fence that separates Greatest Generation from Ingles.
It could be fine, I'm just saying that you can access that from over there at any time.
Why don't you go and you personally rode to see what they're talking about as far as the fencing?
Yeah, there's no fence that separates that.
Well, I mean, I know, but if you didn't buy it,
The
just kind
road kind of sets.
Actually, the track that goes around actually butts really close right up to the back parking lot of the plant
It does.
warehouse facility. And even maybe if you did a little separation, like a pretty privacy, some nice fencing, just on that parking, that's the spot that's concerning to me, which is a small section. A lot of it along the other side, like where you come into the plant, is actually nice looking and stuff, but there's a one little stretch that, maybe you could put, even if it, some type of hedging or something, just to kind of separate that back, because that's a loading dock. It butts up right up against the loading dock.
Or it may be something that, once they're informed, the industry would
Would want
bear
to put
that
it
cost.
there.
And we'll work. And this isn't something we're gonna pull the trigger on. We would present back our official plan, cameras, ingress, egress, but I don't wanna, if it's something the council's not interested in pursuing, then I won't. But if so, I'd bring you back a plan for consideration.
I think
It's a great asset to have. The track's already there.
I think the track in itself, a lot of people would enjoy that. When I first got here, I went out there a few times when I first came on and ran that, because I like to run. And that's a great place to run, because it's such a big loop. You could do 2 laps and it's a 5K. So it's a nice area, and I think a lot of people would really enjoy it. I guess the difference in Generation Park, like you're referring to it being open, it is open, but you don't have a loading dock area that butts up against Generation Park anywhere. So that would be my only concern, is that one little area.
That concern, the previous concerns you've had kind of been answered with the access and.
Yeah, because some of my constituents was concerned about the traffic going in, coming up on Second Avenue. But after talking with Russell, he was talking maybe building a parking road over on County Road, coming in on that side, which should eliminate the problem that we.
Are you talking about going like across from Sixth Avenue, like right in that?
We'll have to look at it, and the engineer will have to tell us the best transition. But, you know, it shouldn't be hard to build a transition off a county road right in there.
No, it wouldn't actually, but might be a good idea to make that like a four-way stop, just kind of slow traffic down through there, cutting across. Kind of road might not be a bad idea.
That's true.
It's access to a resource that we have is relatively inexpensive. And there's been, you know, a request, so.
That's a good thing.
I would be willing to volunteer to see if there is any fish in the lake.
I've been told there is.
Do we need any kind of formal vote on that, or just?
I don't think so, Mayor. If you're not gonna tell me no, my plan is just to bring you a plan back in the next meeting.
I think that's good.
Just other general comments. A lot of people have been calling about their electric rates. And, before we get into that, we're taking the calls. Everybody's on a case-by-case basis. We have probably checked 20 or 30, you know, accounts today. Most of the readings are correct. We have had an isolated issue here or there, and we're working with those customers. So just if you have constituents with issues, you know, please tell them, contact City Hall, and we'll look at their case, their account. I did talk to the EMC. They're getting the same calls that we're getting. The weather data, I'll email it to you out, but there was a real cold spell right around Christmas and right around the 14th of January for about a week. And what most of what we've seen is just higher than usual consumption on some of these accounts, which have caused the bills to be, you know, higher. The rate impact is still the $1.56 per 1,000 kilowatts, so it's a virtue of volume, you know, not rate. But takeaways, if you do get calls, have them call City Hall. I've suspended the reread fee for this month. We're not charging anybody if we get calls. We're sending people out, we're checking meters, we're checking the account, we're making sure everything's right. So that's all I have, Mayor, other than a brief executive session for personnel.
Anybody else have any other business before we?
Your Honor, I have an idea. As you know, my name is Don Greathouse. I represent District 4. I'm thinking ahead. Bicentennial celebration. Back in 1975, April of 1975, we had a sesquicentennial celebration here in Thomaston, Upson County, which everyone got involved in when you really got excited, and it builds up a level of excitement. Okay, our bicentennial is 4 years from now, April of 2025. Gives us plenty of time to set forth our pre-planning and planning stages, engage the city government, county government, Chamber of Commerce, Main Street, Historical Society, and others involved in the community, whether it be the churches, the schools, volunteer organizations, civic organizations, etc. We all can work together. It's something we can look forward to. We can work forward to. We need something to feel good about ourselves. And this is something we can work toward. Doug, you were here during 1975. You recall this, Lakeitha, Jeff. Like I said, let's build the excitement. Let's get excited about our community again. Let's feel good about living in Thomaston, Upson County. So I just want to put that idea out there. Let's see where we can go with it. And again, it's a feel-good moment. Thank you.
Right there, though.
I think I spoke with Norman has talked about this too. We know it's on the radar, so that's something that's good. I think it's something good to look forward to. Maybe we'll all still be around by then. 4 or 5 years old. All right. Any other business before we get a motion to go into executive just for personnel?
That's all I got.
That's the. All right. Do I hear a motion to go into executive session?
Motion.
Motion second.
Second.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Since our Cali got person
Thank y'all.
talking.
See you, Cal.
Thank you,
All
guys.
right.
Well, let's work out loud.
That was
Probably take a feeling better.
uh,
we don't.
I think we can keep those, I think.
Can we,
The resume,
No, we don't need the resumes out. We need permits.
Part of the line.
Wait, we'll see.
That's personnel information.
We're back into regular session. I hear a motion to adjourn.
second.
All in favor, say aye. Let him turn that off, make sure we're off.